Welcome everyone to another episode of Talk of the Town. I'm David Camden and I'm joined alongside former Blindside Skateshop owner Devin Ashing. We're going to go over the story of Blindside. So let's just jump right in. Getting started, I've got on the list here 10 eBay boards. Tell us about 10 eBay boards.
Basically, I was a kid in, I want to say it was 7th grade. My parents were tired of buying skateboards like every week. And I took my summer job, was doing miscellaneous stuff like every kid does at that age. Bought 10 really crappy skateboards off eBay.
At the time, they seemed pretty
good.
good.
They were great, but they were terrible. Sold to all my buddies, saved all the money, and 10 turned into 15, 15 turned into 20, and so on and so forth. It just kind of grew.
So at what point did you put a rack in your mom's store? She had a reservation store, right?
Yeah, she had like an office downtown where she did like office type work.
Office stuff in an office store.
Correct. Yeah, things you would typically do in an office.
I remember going there and just getting pop back in the day.
Right, because pop is at an office typically. Yeah. You have a vending machine.
Well, no, it was like a fountain machine.
Well, yeah, we're slightly classy.
Yeah, you guys are a step ahead of the game, and that was for your hotel, right?
Yeah, they did like marketing and like advertising stuff. This is back before telemarketing was like terrorist work.
Oh, right. I
remember you get a telemarketing call now, you get upset. Back then, it was kind of just like the normal thing.
I remember the cubicles.
Right,
like
there's definitely little cubicles in the back.
So you just had like 2 racks.
Yeah, basically, my parents were kind of tired of all of my friends and at that point, kind of random people coming to like the garage and buying stuff that they didn't know. And that year for Christmas, my dad built some like display cases, set them up in the shop, or not shop at the time. In my mom's office, my mom's kind of set up like the legal side of things because obviously you can't do that at that age. So
how old were you?
It would have been 7th grade, so like 13-ish.
So you started a business in junior high.
Yeah.
That's what's crazy about that.
Yeah.
I was talking with Kelsey about that today, and I was like, if you really think about it, though, what other high school kid had a business? Like, very, very few, if any, at all.
It's a little rare. It's different.
And then, how long did it take before you were pushing your mom's store farther and farther back?
Within, I would say 6 months roughly, we had from like just a corner to like the majority of the front. And within the first year, we were taking over the entire building.
And that was all South Shore, right?
Yeah, that was all through a middleman company, third hand. Like the company sells it to like a distribution company, and then the distribution company sells it to us. Okay. It was before we went like direct with anyone.
So did your mom get that from like the business license she already had for the hotel?
Yeah, we found one company that was like a middleman of a middleman that we were paying really high prices for, and then after just Google, because you can find anything online now. We found other companies and kind of,
So that was it. You found South Shore on Google?
Correct.
That's crazy.
Through Google, basically, you can find anything. So.
Well, I've got here on my paper. You had a roll-in your backyard that if you were living in Tahlequah and you were driving by your house, you could see it from the highway.
Yeah, it was a 20 or 22 foot ramp. I remember being a kid, like I wanted a trampoline my whole life. And I wasn't allowed to have a trampoline.
Because that's too dangerous, but a 20-foot roll-in.
Trampolines are too dangerous, and I wasn't allowed to play ice hockey because that was too dangerous. And I told my dad I wanted a 4-foot mini ramp. Literally 4 foot tall, however wide he wanted to make it.
Your dad always went overboard.
I remember coming home from school one day, and this is monstrosity of my dad and my uncle building a 20-something foot tall ramp that was just way above anyone I knew skill level.
I remember Max Talbert falling off of it.
Oh yeah, you climb scaffolding like you would use in construction just to get to the top of it.
You and your dad made all kinds of stuff back then, didn't you?
We did. He went overboard on, I would say 99% of the things, and the other 1% he just wasn't sure how to make it overboard.
But then he just did it anyway.
Right, yeah, he just said screw it and did it.
So at that point, how long before you occupied your mom's entire store and she was like, look, okay, this is your store at this point?
I would say like the first year we took over the first third of it, and then the 2/3 of the back was just all cubicles like you were talking about earlier. I would say within like another year, so like the first year and a half to 2.5 years, we occupied the entire store basically.
Right.
To where all she had was her office that was in the middle that was just walled off, doored off, all on its own.
So were you going direct at any point during that, or were you still all South Shore for the first year?
At that point, we may have had a few small companies, nothing like major. It was really once we went into the big shop is whenever we kind of
Expanded farther.
Yeah, that's when everything kind of like just went way up real quick.
Right, because you were in the smaller space beside what was the antique mall in Tahlequah back then.
Yep.
And then we always envied their spot.
Yeah, it was like the ideal thing. It had tall ceilings, big floor space. I mean, it was the place to be as far as retail goes downtown.
Well, I remember coming to the shop one day, and your dad was building a half pipe.
Oh yeah,
I looked through there, go, Devin, do you have more space?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he was in there, had a half pipe or a mini ramp.
Yeah, fully
framed out. But at that point, it wasn't a shop, right? Because you had 2 leases going.
Right. Yeah, the same landlord had the original spot where it all started, and then the tenants of the second location, when we moved into, just closed business. They were older, they retired. It sat vacant for a while, and we worked out a deal to where we were able to take that building over, and we got a few months of free rent to renovate the building and stuff. And we basically said we're gonna skate in it 95% of the free time, and then the other 5% we'll worry about moving.
Was there always a door between the two, or did you guys make that?
There was always a door. I don't know why it happened. I know the original store, it had like a false wall that we didn't even know was there until we went into the other building and realized there's a door on this side, but not a door on this side.
So you were like, we can knock out into our old side.
Yeah, we literally opened the door and there's like, it was either a sheet of plywood or a sheet of drywall. And within a matter of a couple of minutes with a hammer, you're walking.
Yeah, see, I never saw that part. I just got there and all of a sudden there was a door.
Right.
And then there was like a framed out skate park.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the heck is going on?
My dad had framed out the entire mini ramp literally, like you said, from
a
before lunchtime. When by the time we got out of school, it was already pretty much skatable.
So was that just like while you were waiting on your old lease to end?
Yeah, like I said, it was the same landlord, so everything kind of worked easily together. But he worked out really well to where it benefited us and him, as far as not him having an empty building, and then we were able to kind of move slowly and make it how we wanted, because it had been years before any. I think the antique place had been there for like 10, 15 years.
Definitely. I
mean,
I remember
long time.
So you were gaining sales that whole time, though, right?
Correct.
Because your store was growing and growing and growing.
Yeah.
So at first it was just boards, but then you had boards and trucks and wheels and bearings.
Right. It started off with, like you said, those 10 eBay boards, and then it went to like a few trucks, a few wheels, like a little bitty corner, and then you would sell one set, then you'd buy 2 sets of trucks, 2 sets would turn into 3 would turn into 5. You basically kept almost doubling your inventory each time you sold something, to where you had a full inventory. Because at that age, you have no bills other than what are you buying out of the vending machine at school?
Yeah, the Tiger Shop.
Exactly.
So, at what point were you like, we need more space, we want the antique mall? Like, was that something that just happened when they went under and you were like, we're already growing anyways? Or?
That building had been empty for a few months, and it was in the winter. And obviously, everyone knows Oklahoma winters are terrible.
Right.
There's nowhere to skate, and we had a few ramps in the back where all those cubicles used to be that we took over for inventory. And we had just randomly thrown out the idea of, hey, what would it take to move next door? And we were able to, secure that deal to where we were able to stay in the current location for retail, and then utilize that building however we wanted for X number of months, before we had to pay rent for both locations.
Right.
And then once we fully moved over to the second location, we didn't have to pay rent anymore at the other one.
But let's backtrack a little bit even further. You had been working for your parents at the hotel your whole life, right?
Yeah, for the most part.
Because you always had a work ethic since I met you.
I was always doing something.
Like, working the cash register or bussing tables.
Right, yeah, you're always kind of helping guests, whether it's at a hotel aspect or restaurant aspect or anything.
Yeah, you stay busy.
Right.
Well, I want to talk about ASR, Black Box, and Agenda. Because that was about the time I jumped in with Blindside.
Right.
I really don't know. Maybe you were a year in. Because I watched the merger to the antique mall. And then before I knew it, we were going to California.
Right, yeah, business trips. And
so how did you get invited to the Action Sports Retail?
Basically, like I said originally, Google works magical worlds as far as like figuring out how things work and where to go. And we knew if this company has everything, there's someone that is selling that company something.
Right.
And we knew if we broke that door, then we would get a lower rate, so B, we could sell to customers cheaper, and then C, ultimately make more money and make things easier as far as progressing.
And a cool relationship with
right.
the company.
And you knew you kind of got, like, you cut out the middleman to where you were talking directly to everyone versus, like, through a bunch of people. So we found ASR through that, went there in, I think it was ninth grade. Ninth grade was the first year we went to ASR, so it would have been our freshman year in high school. My freshman year, sophomore.
I'm trying to make sure. That sounds about right, because back then I remember I was dating a girl in high school, and your mom took a picture of a go-go girl next to me and held it as blackmail.
Oh, goodness, yeah.
And so I was trying to think of, like, putting in the timeline of, like, who that was, what time that was.
Yeah, that was freshman year for me, junior year for you, or sophomore year for you in the fall. So I had just started high school.
I remember I was telling Kelsey, like, we had to have your parents come because you're not legally allowed to go at that age.
No, we were the youngest attendees at the trade show, if I remember right.
Yeah, and then the action sports retail, like, where agenda now is skateboarding. The action sports retail was surfing, skateboarding.
Pretty much anything that's not just straight up fashion.
Yeah, and I was telling Kelsey, I was like, I mean, we were young boys, and we walk in, and it's like the PacSun runway models of swimsuits, and we're just like, oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
Almost like drooling at these girls.
Yeah, we had never seen like, they were like,
oh, hey, what are you guys doing? Oh, we're just checking it out over here.
Yeah, just checking it out. What are you doing up there?
But I remember walking around that convention, and it was enormous. I mean, the convention center was the size of like 2 Tahlequah City blocks.
It was massive.
And
it's one of the largest ones.
Do you remember when we turned that corner real fast because we were late to an appointment and we ran straight into Day One Song? Like, knocked him on the ground?
I knocked him over, and he was the nicest guy ever.
Yeah, the nicest dude ever about it.
We were tripping because, like, oh, shoot, we just heard this dude, and at the time there was a big contest later that day where like, he's not going to get skated in it. Just acting a fool, basically.
I remember I was feeling all cocky, and I challenged a guy to skate, and it ended up being like Alex Mizarov or whatever his name was. He was like the S Game of Skate champion.
Yep.
And I didn't know that.
We had no idea.
He dominated me.
Oh, for sure.
And they had the Lord of the Lines that year.
Yeah, because they had, we were sitting on top of the mini ramp watching everything. Remember that?
What was that guy's name that made the half pipes that we became friends with?
Jim Bell.
Jim Bell, yeah.
Jim Bell.
He always had like the strings on the side to catch your board and stuff. That was the first time I ever saw
Very
that.
smart.
A genius
We did
idea.
not have that at the store, and we should have.
Yeah, we did after that. Really.
We definitely put it in after we got back, but no, that was really smart actually.
Can you remember any or a few of the companies that you got at that first action sports retail that kind of fueled you to like be like, you know what, we're kind of going somewhere here?
Like we tried to talk to a lot of people, and 9 out of 10 companies would just blow us off like we were a joke. A, because we're so young, and B, it doesn't sound feasible. The one company that like said, yeah, we're in, was Globe.
Right, Globe.
Globe and Dwindle, because it's the same thing.
Globe was huge back then.
Globe was the dude as far as like without going straight up to like Nike or Vans. Like they were very high in the world.
But Nike wasn't really a thing at that point
this is
in the skateboarding world.
Nike was there, but they were in the dark. Like this is pre anything like now. But they straight up took, hey, we're in. Like this is what we need. You are going to be good.
Right.
And then pretty much from that day on, all I wore throughout my entire high school career was Globe.
Yeah, because Dwindle rather had Globe, and then Almost.
All the hard dude brands.
What else they have? Dark Star,
Almost, Tensor, Globe.
See, and that was when I first learned that umbrella companies owned all these other companies.
Yeah, like you'll have one main company and there'll be 4, 5, 6 small ones that fall under it.
And surely you remember the time we had the Blitz. Blitz owned everything.
Like the shopping spree?
Yeah, the shopping spree. But before that, we met Tony Hawk, and he gave us both a board.
Yeah.
Mine's still hanging in what's now Avenue Skate Shop.
I broke mine.
Yeah, you broke yours. Like, you break every board. But I don't think that we did the shopping spree the first trip. I think that was the second trip.
2 or 3 years in. That was a heck of a time, for sure.
So we'll get to that. Let's stay with ASR for a little bit longer. I remember us getting to make our own skateboard, getting to decorate it.
I think it's like Professor Smith, I think his name was.
Yeah.
They do this by a lot of element shapes and stuff.
Yeah, and you got to just like wait in line and make your own board, decorate it up, and keep it.
Yep.
And back then, the economy was better. People were just handing us stuff.
Oh, yeah, that was, let's see, it would have been 2007 2008 probably.
I remember just like having so much stuff in my hands, I couldn't,
You couldn't
carry it all.
No, you were making multiple trips, and a lot of it was like 90% of it was things you would use.
Yeah, definitely.
Like a lot of it wasn't waste.
And I remember we even got a Nixon watch a piece.
Oh yeah.
And that was like what, a $200 or $300 watch.
Oh, for sure. We got Nixon stuff. This is when Skull Candy was becoming a big thing. Like,
oh yeah.
Way before they were in
I got that
Walmart.
Skull Candy necklace and stuff back then. Way back then.
They definitely. This is when people took care of each other for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and everybody had more money to throw.
For sure.
At that time,
definitely.
But then, let's see. The second year we went there, I believe, was when we found out that Tum Yetto was basically right across the street.
Yeah, we had no idea. We'd been there. I think this is either a third time because it was twice a year, so it's biannually. I think it was either the third time or fourth time. We're like, wait, Tum Yetto is literally a few miles away.
Yeah, I remember going through the warehouse with you, and they were like skating the warehouse. There was like just ramps and boxes.
Yeah, they had. It was built on a hill to where it was like multiple levels, and one of the levels had a full blown mini ramp, and then all the other ones had something like whether a rail, a box, a quarter pipe, something to skate. Which is really cool.
So was that the shopping spree time, or was that when it moved to Black Box? So I feel like we were in a different part of California at that point.
So Black Box is in Carlsbad, and
so the economy died, right? And action sports retail
it took a hit for
died
sure.
with it.
It didn't die fully, but it definitely was wounded as far as like the budget for like promotional things, like what we were talking about. You would just get all kinds of free stuff. It definitely took a hit as far as all that goes.
Because I remember the next year, you were like, hey, this year we're going to Carlsbad, California. We're going to the Black Box warehouse. We're going to Jamie Thomas's warehouse.
Yeah, so that year, it kind of progressed, like you said at the beginning. ASR was kind of for action sports. It's action sports retail is what it stood for. But it's all action sports based, but then they had all kinds of fashion, things like that we don't give a crap about. Like,
right, exactly.
Care less about other than just looking around. And it was really expensive for all the companies to go there. Like, it was astronomical how much...
For a booth rent.
For small companies were having to pay just to have their little cubicle there.
Definitely.
So then Jamie Thomas realized, hey, there's a hole in this economy, and they created Black Box, basically. Well, they had Black Box originally, but that's when...
They did the Black Box Open.
They did the Black Box trade show, and then after that, Agenda was still there, but it was like... No one really knew about it, and then once Agenda realized people are leaving ASR to go to Black Box, they started approaching people, and then Agenda became a thing about a year later after that.
Because I remember us going to Carlsbad at least 2 years.
Yeah, probably. A year and a half, 2 years.
What I remember is, I remember walking in, and they handed us a bag that had like a fallen shirt, a mystery hoodie, a beanie,
like a whole little party pack, basically.
Yeah, they're like, what size are you? And we're like, oh, this size. And they're like, here you go.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh. And then in the same room, they had a beta for Skate.
Yeah, the original EA Skate.
Yeah, and I remember I was like, I had played Tony Hawk. You hit X and then left square to kickflip.
Right.
And then they had Skate, and you got to like
You got to do every little thing.
Yeah, and I remember telling you, this isn't going to catch on.
No.
This is too complicated.
It's too hard. No one's going to play it.
I played it for like 2 seconds and was like, nah, Tony Hawk. And then next thing you know, Skate 1, Skate 2, Skate 3. And now,
that's massive.
10 years later, they're still wanting Skate 4, but EA doesn't want to do it.
Right, they don't want to back it for whatever reason.
Now they just keep making crappy iPhone games that I don't want to play.
Exactly.
I heard they made a new game for like Steam or PC or something, but I don't play that, so I don't know.
I don't have internet.
But then I remember we went through the building and we got out the back side, and there was a huge barbecue.
Oh, massive. Like, it smells so good.
And then we were just like getting our food, and it was just like pro after pro. Like
everywhere.
Everywhere you looked, it was like top name pros.
Literally everywhere.
And me and you.
Yep. Yeah. Hi, guys.
And then like, everybody else was like a business person.
Yep.
And then there was me and you, and I remember we got around the back, and they had a big indoor skate park.
Yeah, they had a full park.
Adrian Lopez was skating. I remember being like, oh my gosh.
Yeah,
there's a
bunch
pro.
of just random pros just cruising around having a good time. That was fun.
What I'm always reminded of on that Carlsbad trip, though, is that when we got to town, we were looking for a skate park, and we found one on the GPS, and we got there, and there was a bunch of kids skating, and they all had helmets.
Yeah.
And they were like,
yeah, like, what is this crap?
They're like, you can't skate unless you have a helmet. And we're like, well, we don't have one.
We're skating until we get told not to.
So we were skating, and then the bell rang. And it turns out all the kids left, and that was their class.
Which is why they had to have a helmet.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember sitting there thinking, what? they don't have PE, they have skateboarding? Like, why do I not live here?
Yep.
And then after that, it was just me and you, and the security guard immediately noticed that we weren't supposed to be there.
We were the sore thumbs for sure.
But I remember they were really nice about it.
Oh, 100%. We're not from here, we're from Oklahoma. Like, oh, okay, you just have to have a helmet.
Yeah,
Can't be
definitely.
here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we went and we found Carlsbad Gap.
We did.
Because I remember we watched it on videos on Baker and stuff, and we were like, oh, it's not that big.
No, we're like, oh, that's skatable.
Yeah, and then you and I got there.
Severely incorrect.
And we had your dad's Motorola Razr.
Yeah, the flip phone.
Filmed the clips on the Motorola Razr.
Yep.
It's probably somewhere not able to be seen because
No,
it's
and
so
if it is,
pixelated.
it's going to be like 5 pixels for a full screen.
Yeah, I just remember ollieing down that gap and it landing uphill and just eating crap into the ground and going, how did they do these
No,
tricks?
yeah, the stair set felt like 2 or 3 foot taller just by the size of the stairs. It was massive.
Yeah, exactly, because that spot was in Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 even.
Yeah, like we both cruised through there and it had runway for days, and we both ollied it first try, like no big deal, which built our confidence way high. Like, oh, we got this. And then I just remember like eyeballing that gap because I'm like, the stairs don't mean nothing. I'm like, that means everything. And I see you like trying to do a 180 and you just like, you get about 90 around and you just kick it straight down like, nope.
Yeah,
So
dude,
then-
it was just, whenever you hit that Carlsbad Gap, you have to clear I don't know how many feet, and then there's a ledge.
Oh, it's
and it just feels like you're going to hang your feet up and flip over.
no, it's a whole different animal. Like the few times I tried to ollie it and I stuck it on a board, like each time I thought I was gonna clip.
Yeah.
But I was far from clipping. But just like the view of it, you think you're gonna hit it every time, no matter what.
Definitely. Let's see what we got on here. Let's keep it moving. All right, let's talk about going back to Tahlequah. You know, and your shop's pretty prominent at this point. But then we got to go back and forth to your hotel, and that part was like iconic for me back in the day. I remember riding in your mom's BMW with the top down,
Right.
to
warm
Eureka
weather.
Springs, and then we would get up in the morning. We were wavers, and at that point, we waved to the cars so that they would.
Wave at random people, hey, come eat
We
here.
had neon shirts on, so
We'll
that
look ridiculous.
they would come eat at the restaurant. But then the people that worked there would tip us out.
Right, yeah. So we got like, I don't know the percentage, but we would get a percentage of whatever they would make. And we'd make, $7,500 each day. And to kids, we're like, we're good.
I remember it was a huge amount of money.
Oh, it was astronomical for us.
And we were staying at a hotel.
For free.
And then your family had the breakfast buffet.
Yep.
Like, oh my gosh. Like, I remember I saw that buffet and I saw an endless pile of bacon.
Oh, so
And I was like,
bacon.
oh my god, there's got so much bacon.
Yep.
And then there was the hot tub and the pool.
Yep.
And I wasn't there at the time, but you guys drained that pool and skated it, didn't
Yeah, we
you?
drank it a few times, yeah.
Was it just cleanup time? You're like, we're gonna skate.
Yeah, basically, every couple of years you would drain it every year, but every couple of years you drain it, and then you would just go through, make sure there's no cracks, and then repaint it. And we would drain it, we would get to skate it for a day, and that was it.
And then you paint over the
And
scuff
then it
marks.
would be any cracks if there was any, they would be seal fixed or whatever, and then it'd be painted, and then be good for another couple of years.
So like, was it rounded at the bottom? I don't remember.
Yeah, like the shallow lane was real steep. Like you could skate it, but you had you couldn't do much. But the deep end was actually 100% skatable. Like you could carve the whole thing. It was hard to get up on any of the coping because it wasn't. It was in between like pool coping and like regular pool coping.
Right.
Like old school to new school.
So it was just fun to carve around.
Right. You could just basically have a lot of fun. You could get a lot of speed and cruise around basically.
See, what I remember is like working in the morning for a few hours, getting paid way more money than I needed as a kid.
Right.
And then your mom would give us those trolley tickets.
Yep. Just
So
ride to the skate park.
We'd jump on the trolley with our boards and go straight to the skate park.
Yep.
And we'd be there pretty much all day.
All day. They ride the trolley home.
Yeah, and then ride the trolley right back home. I think it's so cool how they have public transit like
Oh
that.
yeah, it's so easy to get on. Literally, here's my ticket. Go.
Yeah, and so then let's jump back. So we went to ASR, then ASR turned into Black Box, then Black Box turned into Agenda, and
Right.
that's when we went to Long Beach.
Right.
Was I there the first time you went to Long Beach? I kind of feel like I was. I don't.
You were
remember.
either there the first time or the second. You missed a couple just due to either work or school schedules.
I usually didn't go to the January show. I usually only went to the August show.
Yeah.
And you always went to both.
Yeah, originally started August and January, and then it went from January, and then the August show moved back towards July because of deadlines for production for all the shoe companies.
Oh, okay.
So.
But I remember getting to Long Beach, and we stayed in that hotel that was like right across the street.
Yep.
And
the Wyndham, I think, is what it was.
I don't remember. It was just the nicest.
It was pretty fancy.
Freaking hotel.
It's fancy
I've
for
ever been to.
us. Fancy for some kids.
But I remember getting to Agenda and like walking around, and at this point it was just skateboarding.
Right. It's pure what we were there for.
ASR, but without all the extras.
Right.
And that was whenever we were able to actually talk face to face with some of these bigger companies, and they actually gave us the time of day finally.
Right, because they weren't dealt with like all the BS drama of like who is this person, this and that.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in front of them, it's a little harder to say no.
Right, exactly.
Like, I remember Vans, like, they were not going to answer the phone.
Mm-hmm.
They were not going to call us back.
We tried for years.
Yeah, and then finally we were at Agenda, and we're like, hey, here we are. And they're like, oh, okay, we'll set you up an appointment.
Yeah, that was the year I was on a snowboarding trip with a bunch of other friends in Breckenridge, and I sent you, and I think 3 other people out to Agenda.
I think it was Chance Guthrie, Taylor Edgison, and Corey Seitz.
I think so.
Because that was the time you weren't there, then you showed up out of nowhere.
Yeah, and I got a phone call from one of you guys saying, hey, we have an appointment with Vans tomorrow. I'm like, you what? You're like, yeah, we have an appointment with Vans. I'm like, I'll be there in the morning. And I remember I was driving, we were driving to Keystone. I bought a flight that morning and left the following morning at like 1 or 2 a.m., got my truck, drove to Denver's airport, parked my truck, got out stressed because I was tired, realized my entire truck was keyed,
Oh, God,
was in a terrible mood, get in the airport, my flight's delayed by 2 hours, again in a terrible mood because there's nothing to eat, finally get there, show up, and then everything worked out perfect.
Yeah, I mean, you get me in front of somebody, I can probably talk them into it.
Yeah,
But I couldn't believe that they actually said yes.
we had tried for them for probably 3 or 4 years, like in person, and then we had tried from the very beginning, like through phone calls.
Let's back up a little bit real quick for the cool story of the time that you and I went to ASR. We got to meet Tony Hawk. We got to meet all these people, and then it was time to fly home. And they said, hey, there's no flights. And your mom was not having
She
that.
lost it.
She said, no, you're having us home.
She's ready to go home. Yeah, they'd overbooked flights like they normally do, and most people would just say, all right, whatever, we'll take the next flight. My mom was not having it. This is before, like back then, you could kind of get away with a little bit more. Next thing you know, it's about midnight, and it's literally me, you, my mom, and dad.
Yeah.
And that's literally it on the entire flight.
It felt like a private jet.
It basically was. Once they got airborne, the pilots opened the door so you could walk up and talk to them. You could see all the instruments, and they're super nice. Both of them were. We had 2 stewardess. One brought you and I an entire tray of
Yeah, they
whatever.
were like, just make whatever drink you want.
Whatever you wanted. They brought my parents the other, and they just hung out basically for the entire flight.
I remember laying across the seats and filling out orders.
Oh yeah.
Just because we had all the room.
Yeah, he had all the room, all the time, all the free space. Like
That was one of the only times I got to sit first class because there was nobody else.
Yeah, it was all first class at that point.
Exactly. But so let's go back to so now you're in the bigger store.
Mm-hmm.
You've got all these accounts direct, and your store at that point was, I mean, it was booming. I remember your board wall being like, I don't even know, it was massive.
Yeah.
Do you remember how many boards were on it?
It was around 180, 190 boards for the entire thing.
Yeah, and then you had like shop decks and stuff in a side sales bin.
And then you had other bins of boards, other racks, this and that.
Yeah.
But the actual board wall itself was around 180, 190
And
boards.
racks of clothing and racks of clothing, and the mini ramp was still there.
Yeah. You still had the original ramp that my dad had framed up from day one.
And then I remember the office was upstairs,
Mm-hmm.
and for some reason you decided one day to build a ramp down the
Right,
stairs.
yeah, we were left alone unattended, which is always a dangerous thing. We put 2x4s down the stairs, sheeted it in plywood, curved the bottom, built a random launch ramp. We were skating over all the store fixtures.
Yeah, I remember.
And my mom lost her cool real quick.
Oh, I
She
bet.
came back.
Your dad taught you how to use all those tools when you were so young.
Yeah.
I mean, you were building anything.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how many times I watched you stab yourself with the nail gun, just shooting a nail straight into your
It's
hand.
happened a few times.
More than I can count.
Definitely a few times.
So, at that point, your store is in its full, as big as it had
It's
ever
in
been.
its prime, yeah.
And you were still in high school.
Yeah, at that point I was probably a junior.
So, did any of your teachers ever be like, hey, I mean, Good for you for running a store and being here at school.
A couple of them. Honestly, I was a terrible student. Like, I didn't really, like, try that hard in class. As long as I, like, wasn't the worst and failing, I was completely content with it. I look back now and kind of regret it, but they all kind of knew, like, school wasn't, like, whatever I was designed to do. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, were you in any sports or anything back then?
In junior high, I ran, like, cross-country track. I did wrestling just to do it, to kind of, like, I was terrible at it. The first couple of years, like, my freshman and sophomore year, I ran cross-country a little bit here and there, did random track meets, and then wrestled. But again, I was terrible at wrestling. I was just more or less just there because I had to be there.
I joined track and I joined wrestling, and I was decent at both, but I was always ineligible from having a write-up.
Right.
So they're like, oh, you can't go to any of this. So I was always just at the school, so I finally just dropped them.
Right.
I went to PE with the losers.
Basically, it's like once I got into high school, the store was at a level to where, like, A, I just wanted to go to work, and B, I just wanted to skate. I just wanted to make sure I was there long enough to not fail and be good.
So at that point, you were just basically like, all right, I paid my parents back everything they invested, and you were just saving, right?
Right, yeah. Basically, like, I had no bills. Like, I lived at home, obviously, because I was in school. So whatever I made, I just put it right back into the store. So it was a lot easier than, like, if I were to start it today as far as, like, growing things.
Right. The economy was better. You didn't have any overhead bills other than the shop itself.
Yeah, basically.
I mean, that was incredible because I watched, like, the throwback videos on Facebook every once in a while, and I'm like, oh my gosh, look at all this stuff.
Yep.
But then eventually, the landlord ended up giving most of that to Cherokee Nation.
Right, yeah. There was at one point, like, I knew I wanted to revamp the store. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and there's a space that was 2 stores down that was open, and the rent was super cheap. And I'd had the store closed for, like, maybe a week because I had no idea what I wanted to do. It had been the same for years. So I ended up leasing that location and just moved the retail side there. And then somehow it escalated from just remodeling the store into, like, a newer style store to where we had, like, a little mini indoor skate park for, like, a hot minute.
Right, I remember skating in that. We called it the training facility, and that place was fun.
Yeah, it was never open to the public, never made $1. It just cost me a bunch of money and time. But it was...
I remember teaching a lot of kids
good memories,
how to drop in and stuff.
Oh, for sure.
Like birthday parties.
Like, a kid was, like, literally, a kid could come off the street, never skate in his life, come here, walk 20 feet over, unlock a door, and have an entire skate park to himself to learn how to do everything.
Yeah, exactly. And we were all hands-on back then.
Yeah, definitely. Like, we were all, that was one thing I pride ourselves for as far as, like, our, like, patience as far as taking kids and
definitely.
teach them how to do it and things like that. Like,
I've got here on my paper, yearly contests, park maintenance, like, that was all you.
For the most part.
I mean, and your team of people helping you.
There's a lot of people in the back side that never really knew, but yeah.
Well, I remember you going down there with a leaf blower regularly to clean up the skate park, even though at that point you weren't even skating as much as some of the other guys because you had a lot of other hobbies.
Right.
You were at the lake a lot doing wakeboarding and stuff, but you were still down there cleaning up the skate park.
Right. Yeah. At that point, this is before we got the new park we have, and I would just remember from city council members, I would just get random phone calls, random emails. 90% of them were, like, them upset, blaming me for things that I have no control over.
Exactly.
I would be blamed for trash, blamed for vandalism, blamed for this or that. It's like...
Basically, you're the contact for the skateboard.
Right. Just because I have a store that relates to skateboarding doesn't mean I'm the source of the trash, the vandalism, this and that. It's not our fault that whatever happened.
But you decided to take the high road and go clean it up.
So as soon as I started getting all these phone calls, I attempted to get certain city council members to provide lighting, provide security, as far as just police driving by every once in a blue moon, give us a single trash can versus us when they would have a parade having to steal a trash can off Main Street and bring it down there.
Exactly.
We'd have it for maybe a week before the city would take it back. But at that point, I was so tired of all the phone calls, I went to Sherwin-Williams and talked to them. They ended up giving us a really good deal on paint, and I pulled money out of my own pocket, pulled together all the kids, everyone that skated.
Yeah, all the volunteers.
Yeah, we told them like 2 or 3 weeks in advance, hey, this day, on this time, we're all going to go down to the park and we're going to paint it. And we had 40, 50, 60, pretty much any kid or adult that ever had anything to do with the park was there. They all had paint rollers. They all cleaned it. The newspaper came out. They, documented it. It was really good because at that point, you now took the entire community that A, had a skate park, but B, now each person put effort into it. Whether they
and they
painted
had more pride in it.
Whether they cleaned it, exactly. So at that point, all those kids and adults, anytime they ever saw someone leave trash or anything, they were on it because they respect it that much more because they put the effort in it.
Yeah, and you learn that in life, that anything you earn yourself, you always have more pride for.
Exactly.
But I remember one year you had them paint all the rails pink for breast cancer awareness.
Yep.
And you were always on top of stuff like that. Like anytime graffiti happened, there was Devin painting over the graffiti.
I think we painted the park, and I think it was there for a few years before I stepped out of the skate gang. And I think we only had one vandalism incident.
Yeah.
And it was one random guy, and it wasn't like they were spray painted a bunch of random stuff. He just literally painted a random checkerboard on top of the
I remember that. I was like, what are you doing?
It was bad, but it wasn't like anything like...
Nothing vulgar.
It didn't look terrible from the naked eye. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So...
But also, you always had a yearly contest, and every time you had the contest, you added a new obstacle.
Correct.
So, I mean, you had the store. How long did you have the store?
Whenever I stepped away from it, it was right around 13 and a half years.
Yeah, because I wanted to say it was 14, so it was right under that.
It was a teenager for sure.
But I remember at least 6 years in a row of a contest and a new obstacle.
Yep.
I remember you put in the A-frame rail. I remember coming down to the park and you were welding a rail.
Yeah,
I was
literally welding it there.
And then I remember through the help of Ace McCarthy, you had was it the lounge chair?
Yeah, Ace donated money for the lounge chair. I'm like, okay, this is really cool. And then I built the bow tie ledge.
That's still at the park.
Yeah. And the A-frame the lounge chair is still over in a ski spot.
Okay.
Over in the ditch.
And then Mick built a taller ledge. Yeah. And I believe that's at Wiley's house now.
Yeah. Wiley's got the original one for that. Mick just built like a really nice metal frame, concrete topped just ledge that you can move around.
But then it became a lot more well-rounded because a lot of people don't remember it, but we were part of the Tahlequah City Skate Park Council. When we were little kids.
Way back, yeah. We were definitely not driving then.
And we were, I remember working with Camp Luther Homa and having to make like those Cinnabon rolls and selling
and trying to sell to make money. Exactly.
And then we had to make a documentary.
And they had a lot of crazy rules for us.
What skateboarding did for you and how the grant would help us.
Yep.
And then I remember the skate park had 5 phases that they were supposed to do, and the plans were extravagant, and it was supposed to go all the way to the trees by the water.
Yeah, we had a lot of things figured out for sure.
And then for some reason, they only did 2 of the 5 phases.
Correct. Yeah.
I think vandalism or something.
Something happened to where they cut it short for whatever reason, and then they allocated whatever funds were left to other city projects, and then. It was a few years, and then at that point, I was really pushing them towards, hey, I need help as far as lighting. I need help as far as like funding to keep things looking nice. I need a trash can at the park, little stuff.
Right. And we didn't have a bathroom for the longest time.
There's still a porta potty there.
I'm glad that porta potty is there.
Porta potty is there, but it is not up to par. It's better than nothing.
I had to just pee behind the pool building for like 13 years.
Oh yeah.
So
it was there.
But it's kind of funny because I was talking with somebody the other day, and whenever the new skate park was being talked about, that wasn't even the reason we went to the city council. We went there to talk about better lighting and repairing some of the damaged stuff.
Yeah, we just literally wanted the lights replaced to where it wasn't like dark shadows of you don't know what you're about to run into. And then at that point, before they decided to rebuild the whole park, there was a lot of dangerous things as far as like, you could literally pick up the end of a rail that was cast in concrete and move it, or you could take a piece of angle iron that was attached to concrete and pick it out, and it's got razor sharp, rusty, metal on it.
Yeah, definitely.
That's going to hurt someone.
But the irony of it all is, and no offense to Tahlequah, because really grateful for the project that they completed.
Right.
We ended up with a $350,000 skate park, but with the same lighting.
You have a state-of-the-art park that, in my opinion, is up there with like the nicest parks in this part of the country.
With at least a 4-mile radius around us, we're up to par.
For sure.
Other than our lights.
It is very funny that we have the original lighting, basically.
I think that'll get taken care of eventually.
For sure.
I think that they spent so much money already that they're like...
They took original budget and then exceeded that substantially to where you have to respect them.
Definitely.
They went above and beyond as far as what they built us, for sure.
So, fast forward back, you're now decided to move from that smaller location down to the location on the corner.
So basically, we went from being one store down to where the indoor park was at the time to where the skate shop is now, solely because that location had a lot of problems with the building, and the person that owned it didn't want to fix anything.
Right.
And we're like, I can't have a building that's not A, safe, B, structural sound.
I remember a bunch of your shoes getting ruined.
Yeah,
from a water leak.
Yeah, there's a massive leak in the ceiling. The owner of the building didn't want to pay for anything, said it was my fault. I don't know how it's my fault. Your roof.
Yeah, how dare you let your roof...
Massive holes in it. I don't know. I didn't even argue. I said, deuces, move to where the original, or not the original, but where the skate shop is today, basically.
I also remember somebody breaking out your entire front window to steal one hat.
Yeah.
We looked around the whole store. They broke the front window out of the store.
Yep.
They broke broke the glass to the cabinet.
Yep.
And they took one flat billed hat.
Yeah. So basically, we were skating. Me, Mick, and Mick Hinton and Aaron Ritchie were skating at the park. Aaron was driving myself, and Mick and I were in my car, and we left the park. Took a left on the Muskogee. We were driving by the shop, and I see the door busted open, or the window busted open, whichever one it was. And I just remember driving highly erratic to where, like, I'm now in the Banks parking lot going the opposite way, whipping a donut, come running around. For whatever reason, I had a hammer in the backseat of my car, so I'm running into the store with a hammer. Mick's got his skateboard like a machete, like he's ready to kill someone. Aaron Ritchie is falling right behind us. We're running through, the alarm's going off. We don't know what we're running into, and we hear the sink on in the back. Like, oh shit, there's someone in there,
Yeah.
So we're all scared, don't want to open it. And then we open the door, there's no one in there. We're out in the back.
So they left the sink on and stole a hat?
Correct. Yeah, they stole a $20 hat and broke about $2,000 worth of glass.
Why? Who gave you the hat? Just stay there.
But the police came, searched the whole store. There's no one in there, and then they said I should get tickets for driving erratic for this and that because they went and pulled the surveillance footage from the bank.
But they would have done the same thing.
Right, and they're like, at the end of the day, it's fine. Like, you didn't hit anything, so don't worry about it. Say, okay, cool.
So then you've now moved to where it is now,
right.
and you've got it all set up there pretty nicely. And how long were you there? 'Cause that was still quite a few years.
We moved there 2012, I believe, is when it moved there.
When the world was supposed to end.
Yeah, like that was the end of the world. Like, well, this is where it's gonna die. We're still here, guys.
And at that point, all of your companies were direct.
Right. Yeah. We still had accounts with the middleman guys because you have to have those for simple things, but everything else is all direct.
So, like South Shore, though, that still came in handy for fast orders, right?
Right, because it's all
filler.
It's all based on Texas. Like, you order it Wednesday, you get it Friday. It's real quick. It's easy to do.
Super, super fast. Mm-hmm. And then South Shore always has like multiple companies, so you can make a really big variety of stuff.
Yeah, if you don't need like a large order with one brand, you can kind of break up your money in between like a lot of smaller brands, like a lot of smaller quantities for different brands, basically.
So is that like a lot of the stuff you've learned there still helping you with like other businesses you're doing now?
Yeah,
as far as like your business mentality and networking?
It all follows for sure.
But were you already doing that kind of thing before that, or did you just learn as you went?
Yes and no. You definitely learn a lot as you go. Like, even today, like, not even owning a business, I still catch myself, like, going back, like, as if I was, like, the person that owns wherever I work.
Yeah.
Just because I did it for so long, like, I don't want it to be... I want to be the best of whatever it is.
Right.
And I want, like, me, A, to make money, but B, whoever I work for, to make money also.
Yeah, you want them to be doing so well that they can give you extra.
I can continue to make money.
Yeah. So the way I remember it, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, the Obamacare kicked in where you needed to have health care.
You had to have it.
You were like the only white boy in our Indian
Yeah.
our Indian crew.
Zero Native American here.
So at that point, you were like, okay, well, I'll get a job that has health care,
Yeah.
right? Is that right?
And at that point, like before that, I kind of wanted a job just because I never had like a real boss, which sounds silly, but I just kind of wanted to know what it was like.
Yeah, to me that sounds terrible.
I wanted to know what it was like to have responsibilities by someone telling you, like, hey, you have to do this instead of like you or whatever. And I, again, needed to have health insurance, and I never had that. So I just started applying for jobs.
I remember you said that you might work at Lowe's, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden you ended up at UPS.
Yeah, so
what happened there?
I had applied at Lowe's because I drove by one day I was getting some wood to make something out of the park or something, I don't know. They had a sign out front saying now hire. I was like, oh cool, I'll get a job there. And I was filling out an application at work at the shop, and Ron, the UPS driver, who literally seen me grow up since I was like 13 on, saw me filling out an application for Lowe's. Like, what are you doing? I was like, oh, I'm getting a job. And he's like, why? And kind of explained to him. I just wanted to know what it was like. He's like, I'll get you a job at UPS. I was like, oh, whatever. He's like, no, seriously, like, can I give you your name and number to the HR guy? I was like, yeah, sure, whatever.
And that's way better than Lowe's.
I was like, okay, cool, whatever. You know, I'll be Ron Jr. And I was just being a smartass at the time. And then I went in for an interview at UPS and Lowe's, ironically, on the same day. And they both presented me job options. I was like, okay, cool. You know, I'll take whichever one gets everything done first.
Exactly.
And Lowe's is, for whatever reason, taking forever. UPS is like, boom, instant. Like, I was working there within like a matter of weeks, like 2 weeks or something. Okay, cool. And then it was like a week later, Lowe's called and offered me a job for like next to nothing compared to UPS. Like, oh, sorry, I can't do it. I have this. And basically, I started UPS as like no intentions on making a career out of it, staying there.
You were gonna like load trucks, weren't you?
Basically, they put me, since I owned a business, they put me into management straight away, like part-time management.
But that wasn't what you applied for.
No, I had applied just to load trucks or whatever. Just because, again, I didn't really care what it was. I just wanted A, the insurance, and B, the experience.
And they saw you had 10 years of owning a business,
Right.
and they said, hey, no, we want you in management.
Right, you need to do this. And all it was literally part-time management. I was over 6 or 7 guys that are super cool dudes. Basically, I can count every time I ever had to even step in on one hand. Like, they all did their job perfect. I was just there in case shit ever hit the fan, you know what I mean?
Right.
I was the fall guy as far as that goes.
But did you get your health care?
I got my health care
That was-
within 30 days, so I was covered. I didn't have to pay Obama anything, which I'm definitely a fan of.
Yeah. And so, how long before part-time became full-time?
Basically, I was there for, I would say around a year and a half. And my buddy Chase is working power lines, and he was happy. And I knew, like, at UPS World, you have to drive to do anything other than part-time work. Like, whether you want to go to, like, full-time management, you know, center supervisor, center manager, anything, even a driver. And to go from, like, part-time management to driving is really hard. It takes a long time. And I remember talking to Chase. We were doing something at the boat one day, and he and I were talking about me just quitting UPS and going to work for the power line company, because it was like I felt like it was like a dead-end spot, because there's no...
Yeah, it didn't
no
look like you were going
reassurance.
to get that driver's
Right,
spot.
like it was like taking so long to get there, and literally out of the blue, I got a phone call from my boss one day, like, "Hey, I can get you driving." Okay, cool, you know, and we just went that route basically.
And so I remember I was working at the skate shop then,
Yeah.
and then you were like, "Hey, I'm
Yeah.
gonna move from management to driver." I'm like, "What?"
Yeah, it was
Like,
you and Wiley.
because
running
that
the
was
shop at
like-
that point.
None of us thought that it was actually gonna happen.
None of us ever thought Devin's gonna have a real job with a real career, with a real boss, with literally like he has to do his part.
And who wouldn't want to be a driver for UPS? A great job, great benefits.
And you work your butt off, but yeah.
Did you have to have a CDL or?
No, you have to have a CDL to drive the big trucks, but for us, as long as you have a clean driving record, you're good.
Yeah, I saw a few other places like Schwann's and stuff like that. They don't require a CDL either. And it's a
No,
really
they're-
big truck,
Yep.
but I guess it just counts.
Yeah, it doesn't have hydraulic or brakes or anything like that, so you're good.
Oh, okay. Also, I want to kind of back up a little bit to agenda, talk about all the cool stuff we got to go to.
Yep.
I remember going to a Master P concert.
Yeah.
What was that one time it was like Young Duro and Young Jock or something were playing. I don't think we went to that one, but we were walking by and we were just like, what the heck?
There's something for sure.
Saw Chief Keef.
Yep.
Saw Wiz Khalifa. Saw Amber Rose.
Saw a lot of big names that had nothing to skate but were there, which
They were
is kind of
always
cool.
there. Yeah.
Yep.
Like all the rappers were always there.
Everyone of them. Yep.
I would remember taking pictures with just all kinds of people, like fanning
Random,
out.
yeah. Like, oh crap, who's this?
Yeah. So obviously you moved to a driver at UPS, and you finally decided, you know what, I'm gonna sell my baby. Well, you're a teenager.
Yeah, she was a teenager still, 13 and a half. It was almost legal to drive a Harley. Almost, I was so proud. But at that point, like, part of me wanted to try and keep the store, but then part of me knew if I did that, there was no future for it. Because driving at work, I work 11, 12-hour days. I knew there was no way I could, like, make sure everything was taken care of at the store correctly, like it needed and it deserved to make it worthwhile.
And I think it's awesome that what was your store is still running to today.
Yep, still there.
Still there, running as a skate shop.
Hell, today I spent probably an hour there just BS and watching skate videos.
Yeah, and I mean, they changed the name, but it doesn't matter. The skate shop, the
It's still
idea
the
of a
same.
skate shop is still there.
Yep, everything's still the same as far as the bones of it.
So, I mean, other than your paycheck, obviously, do you ever miss it?
I miss parts of it, like, definitely, like, the end of July and the 1st of January, every time those roll around, I feel like an emptiness, just because I should be boarding a plane and going to California,
Yeah.
and, you know, talking to all those people doing all this, but at the end of the day, like, I knew at that point in my life, like, it was time to kind of progress into, like, more of a future for, like, me personally and a future family and this and that versus just following, like, a childhood dream.
Yeah.
And I'm just fortunate enough I was able to kind of hand the ropes off to someone that is younger and
Has passion for it.
has a passion, is great with kids, and is able to kind of follow in the footsteps in a sense, but then at the same time, instead of
their
just going
spin on
straight
it.
down this path, take a different alternative to it.
Yeah, take all the good and then add
Right.
his own spin on
Right,
things.
exactly.
See, and I still sometimes hope I can maybe go to Agenda with either Border Town or 91 Skate, since I'm still affiliated with both of them. Because I definitely missed the California
Yep.
trips.
Agenda's the thing.
Yeah, that was so fun. I mean, it's really hard to beat that, honestly.
You'll never find something in this aspect for us that relates to as far as what you have. Because you can literally see those people once or twice a year, and those one or two times you'll see them, you're best friends. They
Yeah,
remember
exactly.
everything, every one of them.
I remember sitting in booths, and they were just so accommodating.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
they had the coolest booths with the coolest gifts and things.
Yeah.
Not even expensive gifts, just fun stuff.
Just little silly things. I remember taking my best friend Kyle to, let's see, this is still when it was at Black Box. It was Agenda Black Box. This is in the transitional period. And I had my driver's permit, so we would have been sophomores. And we somehow convinced Kyle's parents he needed to go to Agenda. This is the one year you didn't go for sure.
Okay.
It was literally me and Kyle and my parents. And we walk into a booth, and Josh was like, "Hey, Joe, is it okay if they see strippers?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's cool." And we were, 15. I was 16. No, I was 15 and a half. Kyle was 15 because I had my permit. And we walk in, and there's like one little room, and Josh hands me 2 sacks of $100 bills. Just a band of ones. And I was like, "Why do I need these?" He's like, "You'll see." My mom and dad are off just doing whatever.
They already knew.
They already knew, like,
laugh
alright,
at
cool.
you.
They gave us consent, whatever. And I gave Kyle the other stack. I had a decent idea just because I knew Josh's mentality and what he was up to. And we opened the door, and it's like you're in a strip club.
Oh my gosh,
But
they went
it
all
was,
out.
but it was a trade show booth. Like, you had all the boards for sale, all the clothes for sale, but there's just strippers everywhere.
Oh, we didn't cover the shopping spree.
Yeah.
Let's go back to that. So we went, I don't remember when or why, but we were at the Blitz warehouse.
Yep.
They had, what were their companies? Birdhouse, Skate Mafia.
Flips, Game Mafia, Birdhouse.
Baker was under them back then.
That was pre-Baker Boys, so Baker was there. Fury Trucks.
Hookups.
Hookups. I think that was it.
Because I remember
There may have been something else, but those were the main ones for sure.
I remember it was like that show you watched when you were a kid where they like got to go to the store and
The
just pull
shopping
tags.
spree.
Yeah.
You literally rake things in a cart with a big clock.
We had a shopping cart, and they were like, pick out a full outfit. pick out everything you'd need to make a complete skateboard, and then just go ahead and grab some extras too.
Yeah, basically, they legit had a big clock that they had literally taped. I don't know where they got it, but they literally duct taped this clock sideways to the top of the door, gave you and I each a shopping cart, and so you have until it runs out, get whatever you want.
Yeah, I remember just grabbing stuff off of shelves and shelves shelves full of skateboards and like clothing and just. I remember I got a pair of flip pants that I wore for the longest time.
Oh, we all had them.
They were,
Mike Miller was in love with them after that.
Oh yeah, definitely. He's still out there in California. We see him when we went to Agenda, but I haven't seen him because we haven't went to Agenda.
Yep, that's the one thing we're missing.
All right, the last thing I have on my list is where are you now and what do you hope to, what are your aspirations, basically?
Basically, I was a full-time employee at UPS, but I hadn't skated for probably 2 or 3 years until like a month ago. And for whatever reason, Blake called me and said, hey, let's go skate. Because I hit him up about going to the gym. He was like, oh, let's go skate for before the gym. I was like, all right, whatever. I have my board, I think, in my toolbox. Pull it to the park, have my board, and then just kind of like rolling around, just barely able to ride. And now it's kind of like, it's kind of all coming back as far as just cruising around.
And you always had like transition and mini ramp skills,
a little bit,
crazy.
Yeah.
So like when you get down to the park, you were pretty much in it on that.
And I have a lot different respect for it as far as like, you got to be careful as far as like your confidence. You know what I mean? Like you got to keep yourself in check because back then if I got hurt, it was no big deal. Like I can easily grip a skateboard on crutches. Like,
now you got to deliver packages.
Ain't no way in hell I'm driving a package car with crutches. You know?
Yeah.
So and I have bills now. I got to make sure I keep that in the back of my mind. But
yeah, I mean you own your own home. You've got your wakeboarding boat. That's probably where you'll be, huh?
Yeah.
At the lake,
I got to make sure I can still surf and drink a beer.
Any chance you can get. I'm trying to get out there this year.
Yep.
I'm trying to get out to the lake and go.
What's better this year? Last year was rough as far as weather and everything. It was tough.
Well, I guess that concludes. Anything else you want to say about it before we wrap it all up?
Can't think of anything, man.
All right. Well,